It's 2000 BC. Civilizations are building. Trade is exploding. People are getting rich, but money hasn't been invented yet. How can we have a lesson on economics? Ancient economics. Sounds impossible if money hasn't even been invented yet. But wait, if I told you that this is like a game that you're used to playing, survival and wealth. To the ancients, this game of survival and wealth involved economics every single minute of every single day. And honestly, that's what you're doing right now. By not clicking off this video, don't click, you're going to uncover the 4,000-year-old playbook. And you're going to see that this is like a game with rules, and some of the hidden rules and the known rules are called economics. It's all around you every minute of every day. So those choices that they made back then teach us a lot. I'm Mr. Hull, and this is Ancient History. Welcome to Classical Kingdoms, where timeless stories reveal truth and wisdom for your journey. And today's journey is into economics. And if this is your first formal lesson about economics, thank you for taking the time for Classical Kingdoms to be your ancient economics teacher. You're going to find it's the perfect place to gain understanding of economics because economics is everywhere. And since this is before money was even invented, you can understand even better what economics is because it's not actually based on money. Imagine yourself as a wealthy Bronze Age trade leader, 2000 BC, and picture a world where there is no money. So how do you know you're wealthy? Wait, how do you even get the things that you need on any given day? If coins and cash is not yet invented, prices, like how do you even understand what something is worth? And how do we know you're wealthy? How would you even build a life for yourself, for your family? How would you contribute to a city? And if you're wealthy, how do you contribute to your business? And maybe you're a strong leader, or you have a friend who's the king. You want to contribute to your kingdom, to make society stronger, to build the civilization, because that's what we've been studying for these first few lessons. And now we're in lesson 5, but it seems like chaos if we don't have cash. It seems like a recipe for how to not get rich. But in the ancient Fertile Crescent, the cradle of civilization, people were faced with this situation, this exact problem. And the solution is natural. Economics. Economics is a way of thinking. It's a natural way of thinking. It's the truth. It's inside all of us. They created a natural language to understand value. It allowed them to trade and barter, not just with their friends and locally with their families and their kingdoms, but across vast distances. They would build incredible wealth by connecting the ancient world. This is Fertile Crescent and beyond. Trade was driving these civilizations. In this course, this is a complete course about ancient history. You're going to hear trade all the time. It does more than just make money, but today, let's learn the building blocks. Let's learn economic choices. In this lesson, you can decode the language. You can see how economics is a way of thinking, and you can imagine yourself as one of these daring merchants who's willing to risk it all for profit or for your legendary king. And we're going to meet some legendary leaders, and we're going to see their authority and power grow because of good economic choices. So stick around until the end, because there's a little bit of a surprise twist for the way these leaders use economics, kind of counterintuitively, kind of like the opposite. So that'll be a surprise that includes some very important leaders that we'll hear about again and again. But in the meantime, let's understand ancient economics. Let's go all the way down to this deep connection between our choices, our work, and our quest for human flourishing, for a good life. So this is lesson number 5 in your ancient history course with Classical Kingdoms. We're stepping into the story of ancient economics to ask the big questions and discover how it shaped history and how it still shapes your journey. So in this lesson, let's discover the secret language. Let's learn economics. Let's learn the economic terms. Next, Let's uncover the brilliant understanding of barter. Barter before a world of money, barter. Third, we'll journey with the brave merchants that are creating the world's first great trade routes. Finally, let's look at those two very famous wealthy leaders. Let's compare two situations they were in from actual trade records. And by the end of this episode, we will make you an expert, a philosopher, and now an economist, because this is ancient economics, and it's going to take you one step further in your classical education. Let's recap. In the first 4 lessons of this complete ancient history course with classical kingdoms, we showed you civilizations. We showed you the Fertile Crescent, where these civilizations were thriving. We showed you places that civilizations don't thrive, and their economic choices were don't build civilizations in the desert, in the frozen tundra. Now, these Mesopotamian farmers in they were successful. They had flooding rivers, nutritious soil. They understood making clay bricks in the hot sun. They could grow barley. They could grow flax. Flax is a grassy stem and a seed. The stem has fibers. You could take those fibers, kind of smash them out, weave them into fabric. So we got fabric, we got barley, we got food, we got bricks. But they don't have the tools to even farm right. They don't have metal sources. They don't have good stone sources. They don't have timber sources like good cedar. Welcome to Economics 101. The first term that you have to understand is what I just described. Do you know what it is? It's the core of economics. It's understanding that things are hard to get. You struggle to get things. And what word is that? Scarcity. Scarcity. Economics is about scarcity. Everything is hard to get. Everything is a struggle. When you do struggle to get something, you recognize the scarcity of it. There's a limited availability. It's hard to get things that are scarce, and everything is scarce. In economics class, everything is scarce to some degree. Well, let's start jotting things down. Grab your history notebook. What do you prefer for your history notebooks? It's just really important in this classical class that you will have a place to jot down notes, because I bet you already thought, oh, not everything is scarce. Well, pages in a notebook are scarce. I like these bound book, or even some of these more rustic bound books that have a real primitive kind of an ancient style in how they're pieced together. But it's a classical class, and you need handwritten notes and maps that you draw yourself, some illustrations. And so already, if this is your first formal economics class, please join with your history notebook and embark on this journey with scarcity, that everything is scarce. Now, some things are more scarce than others. And when you're in Mesopotamia, barley is not scarce. They've got an abundance of water and the fertile soil, and they know how to irrigate, and they knew how to grow flax. But they needed the tools to farm properly. They needed the weapons to defend themselves. So the scarcity of a variety of items that the Mesopotamians needed forced hard choices. Every choice you have to make is going to have an economic decision. That's what economics is. It's how your scarcity changes your behavior. It's the science behind scarcity. Economics is the study of your behavior when things are scarce. That's what economics is. So a lot of you came to this class thinking it's a money class. Economics is about money. Well, we know money is scarce. And in the age that we live in, money is kind of the quick and easy way that we can overcome the struggle of the items that we need. But that's not what today's class is. We are going to the beginning, ancient economics, when money didn't exist yet. And scarcity is right in their face every minute of every day. Well, it is for you too. Don't click off this video and do something else. Stay struggling and learn ancient economics, because your behavior, your economic behavior, just like the ancients, is based on economic thinking, discerning the truth, understanding a choice. So for Mesopotamians, barley was abundant. It was easy to grow. and they had a surplus of those grains. And let's say, barley's not really my thing. I'd rather be out in the pastures with the sheep and the goats. Well, that's an economic choice. You can do one, but you really can't do the other if you do the one. They're both basically full-time jobs. And that is called an opportunity cost, another economic term. These are all economic terms, so write them in your history books and write down what comes to mind when we say opportunity cost. So even like right now, your opportunity cost for taking this course is not taking a different course, not watching a different video. Your opportunity cost on learning something that really matters is maybe the cost of time wasting entertainment, but it's the value that is determined that makes it a cost. Opportunity cost is really determining what the value is of what you're giving up in order to engage in one activity. And so for ancient Mesopotamian farmers, they're either going to be involved in barley or they have another choice. If you go back to lesson 4 and you go to some of these extreme, harsh places of the world, they could just, one of your choices is to go walk into the desert. If you're in Mesopotamia, just start walking to the west. It won't take you long. You'll be in the Syrian desert real fast. And now the choice is a life or death choice. It's not so much of like, could you build a civilization there? No, nobody ever has. You're going to die of thirst. You're going to die of starvation. It's not safe. Economics is about life or death, but it's also about human flourishing. Which one do you want to do? Do you want the sheep and the goats, or do you want the barley? Either way, it's a choice. Economics is all about choices. Consider your options. You've got to really understand the fact, the reality of your choices. And that makes it an economic decision is after you understand those things. So truth is going to come in here. It's going to be really important for you to discern understanding. Now, wait. You are planting seeds in the ground and walking away from them, watering them. For weeks, nothing really visible is going to be happening. To discern understanding requires a bit of faith. You have to understand that these seeds will grow and that barley will be a crop that you could harvest many months from now. And that is the truth. But it's also an economic choice of a risk because something could happen to those crops. They can be burned. They can be attacked by enemies. They could have a drought. The water could just stop flowing. So would sheep be a better option? The sheep you have to take around and you have to graze into pasture. And you have to consider that also is a bit of an act of faith. You're believing that the sheep will grow wool that you could turn into wool fabric, that you could milk them, you can get the milk and make yogurt and cheese. All of this truth is very necessary for you to make the right choice. Jot it down in your history notebook right now. What has come to your mind so far? What is it that you economize all the time with your studies, with your screen time? What about with your money? What do you economize and what do you already believe you're understanding better? Type it in the chats. Type it in the chat. Press the like button. That's a very good economic choice to help this channel. If you would press the like button because you like economics and you like this way of thinking and you're realizing already it's something that you do all the time. We're studying the way your behavior has changed because of your understanding of economic choices. Okay. The original problem was that you don't have any metal. You're a Mesopotamian farmer. You've got plenty of barley. Your supply of barley is high and your demand for metal is very high. The supply of metal is very low. Now, typically, we just understand that you'll just have to pay a higher price for that. But this is ancient economics and there is no metal close by. But this is ancient economics and there is no metal close by. How are you going to get metal? When you have high demand for metal and a big supply of barley, what are you going to do? You need to go upriver. And this is where trade routes are going to start coming in. You need to take enough barley with you. Now let's think, how much barley does a person really need? When you grow all this barley, it's a grain, people eat grains all the time, every day. And barley is big and it's bulky and it's heavy. And now you got to cart that stuff up on the trade routes up a certain distance. So how do you determine how much metal you should be able to get, how much bronze, how much copper and tin could you get for your bushel, like the gur of barley? Before you barter, I guess you should understand what it's worth. What is the true value of it? So I just have a little bit of barley left from the cabinet, and this is about 140 grams, which is more than 2 healthy servings. Theoretically, this much barley could feed you for a day. What is it worth? It's worth staying alive another day. Now, if you're putting your barley onto donkeys and taking it up the river into the trade routes, and somebody says, I'll take 50 back here. Give me like 50 of these. So these are my steel cut oats. I get a 25-pound bag. This is 25 pounds of steel cut oats. This lasts for a year, and grains last for a long time. So you can buy a big bag, 25 pounds per person for a year is a good amount of food. For ancient people, supplementing it with all the other things, you're going to go fishing, you're going to still go hunting perhaps, but meat is not so much of a part of the diet back then. Okay, I digress. How much is that worth? A 25-pound bag. We know how much it's worth now because we just go on the Sam's Club website, which is where I order it from. And they determine the cost of the shipping, carrying it around. Farmers determine how much it costs to grow. Same thing is happening in ancient times. They are growing it. They got to watch it for months. They got to harvest it. They got to dry it out and process it. And they got to put it on donkeys and take it up the trade routes, go up the Euphrates River. And all the while you're sitting there thinking, what would be a good deal? Because if they want like all of your barley for one little tiny piece of metal that's not even enough for a tool, forget it. If they want to take 200 pounds, you probably have thousands of pounds, many gur. They measured in gur back then. So if you've got like 20 gur of grain and somebody wants all of that for just like one little metal tool, clearly that's not worth it. And the irony is that the people who are ready to barter your grain for the tools, they actually want you to have these tools. Think about that. Interconnected economic relationships. They want you to have metal tools. Why? Why would they want you to have good plows and hoes and gardening tools and all that? Because you're going to produce more barley and make the value even stronger because it'll take less work. And then it's a matter of how do you just get it there? And all of these things are your behavior. It's the behavior of the people with the metal, the bronze, the tin, and the copper. It's the behavior of you, because you would not do this behavior if it wasn't worth it. If there wasn't the right value, you would just keep your barley at your settlement back in Uruk in Mesopotamia. Do you understand that economics is a way of thinking? It's a way of discerning truth, to understand that before you do any sort of barter, it's got to have the right value. It's got to have the right worth. And you would not supply it. That's a behavior. You would not supply the barley to somebody from the north, from the mountains, where they have an abundance of minerals. They don't have an abundance of barley. They need your barley to live. It's an easy food product. It stays dry, and you could last years on 25 pounds, 50 pounds of a few gur of barley. It's really a valuable exchange. It's a valuable barter, and you would not supply the item, the good that you want to barter with, if it wasn't worth it. Both behaviors have to believe that it's worth it. They have to believe that demand up to a point, at some point it'll be too expensive, they won't do it. But up to a point, the demand is going to create the right balance between the supply and the desire, the supply and the demand. What is that called when supply meets demand? Like, you're looking at it here. Why do I have a 25-pound bag of steel-cut oats? Because Sam's Club gave me the right price, and it's convenient. I don't have to keep, and they stay just as good. Like, it's a grain. So as long as you keep it dry, it will last for years. So when you balance all of this together, And the behaviors bring you at balance, equilibrium, like that word equal. The behaviors bring you into balance. And somebody sells the grain. Well, we're in ancient economics class. So someone is going to barter some grain in exchange for bronze tools. Maybe you're going to barter some fabric in exchange for some dried fish, wine, olive oil. Wine, olive oil, and metal are three things they don't really have an abundance of in Mesopotamia, but they're all pretty necessary. They're all pretty useful. And economics is the science of scarcity. It is looking at everyone's behavior. It is a life skill, and it's true. And it's part of your classical journey. So if you need to have a deeper dive, I've got the complete lesson and the complete course at classicalkingdoms.com. So don't miss out on all of that, including some deep dive downloads about so much more in ancient economics. But click the like button, please, and don't forget to subscribe. It really helps the channel. Moving on to segment 2, what do you see happening in this picture? Something different is about to be developed, and we moved ahead in time as well. So we are Bronze Age, and we're in Canaan now. We're under the oaks of Mamre. And we know that bartering is real important, but how do we really know all the time the value of something? You know, the simple barter is swapping a pile of goods for a pile of goods. But what if you don't need any more metal tools, but you want to get rid of your barley? You have an abundance of something, fabric. You don't need all this fabric. You only created it to barter in an economic exchange. And so you're relying on somebody else to have a demand for what you supply. What if that's not the case? Here's a way to make it work without inventing money yet. I know you just want to invent money because of the problem of the double coincidence of wants. It's like an economic law. You have to rely on a barter for someone to have the demand of the thing that you supply. And that's really difficult. It's pretty rare. I don't know how often you try to trade food with people. You know, at the lunch time, you're like, hey, do you want your bag of chips? I'll trade you my whatever salad. No, the double coincidence of wants, we need to get away from that, right? We are in an economics lesson, so let's add a new level. And Mesopotamians and Canaanites and Egyptians came up with one incredible innovation and understanding of economics. They created a standardized system of weights, standardized weights and measures so that everybody could agree on a quantity of value that was apart from how hungry you were for barley. What if you didn't like barley? We see Mesopotamians develop a brilliant innovation that's going to change the world, and we still essentially use it today. Don't say inventing money. We're not inventing money for a while. So what are the Mesopotamians about to do? Right now, I'm going to say it. You can type it in the chat, in the comment section, if you can say something like shekels, a standard weight and measure system like the shekel. It's a weight, and it's kind of a universal weight nowadays. Three shekels make an ounce, kind of close, pretty close. Or in liquids, you always see these amphora. You always see these clay pots, jugs holding olive oil and holding wine, maybe holding water. The sila, S-I-L-A, the sila is about a liter. And yes, the measurement of a liter, similar to a quartz, it's been around for the entire history of the world. It's the same size. It's a very convenient size. I mean, think about a 1 liter amount of something. Go check in your cabinets if you forget what a liter is. But a bottle of water is half a liter. How many bottles of water, plastic bottles of water, do you drink? Sila, that liter, and the shekel, 1/3 of an ounce. It's weighing valuable items to create a basic unit of understanding. So the basic unit of understanding, let's start with a shekel, 8.3 grams. That's just less than 1/3 of an ounce. And silver is going to be the number one precious metal back then. Oh, yes. So you want to make silver coins out of this. You literally have to wait another 1,000 years. from where we're talking about right now, more than 1,000 years. Money will eventually come out of this, but the shekel is a basic unit of weight in ancient Mesopotamia, in Canaan, and it becomes kind of a worldwide. It's going to take on different names like drachma in the Greeks and denarius in the Romans. Very similar size, some variations. We'll get into that. I've got all the deep research and detail about that. This is just the beginning. The shekel, if it was 1/3 of an ounce of silver, how much is the value? How much is the value? Let's think about this for a second. As economic thinkers, it's about how does that affect your behavior with what the value of the shekel is? 1/3 of an ounce of silver. Now, some of you might have already gone and looked up the price of silver. Silver has a variable price in the silver market, and gold does too. And you're not allowed to do that. Don't go look it up. Don't do it. Because then you're going to say, oh, it's worth this many dollars, American dollars. You'll say it's worth a fancy lunch. 1/3 of an ounce of silver is worth like a decent lunch. So literally, if I just was eating rice and beans, barley, just basic nutrition food, you can eat an entire day of basic foods with 1 shekel, with 1/3 of an ounce of silver. You could buy your rice and beans, some vegetables, some fruit, and have a nutritious, simple, not fancy. And remember, in ancient times, meat is not a normal part of the diet. So the shekel, how much is it worth? Well, in the picture, instead of barter, the shekel, get out your scales. Let's measure the shekels of scrap silver. So they weren't coins yet. They could literally just be chunks of silver. You could assess the value by weighing it. It's simple, but it's revolutionary that you would carry around the scale of justice, so to speak. Like, this is going to measure what would be a just and fair exchange. A merchant would place an item in the pan and a certified stone weights, standardized weights and measures, so that people would have a collective understanding of what is a shekel. And on the other side, you're going to use beams to make it perfectly level, and there you go. Precision. And this development, it's an unexpected result to say you're going to get an even bigger innovation coming out after that, is that silver is going to be trusted more and more. Silver is good for a lot of things. It's going to be the commodity that is eventually a part of inventing money. So it's almost like we're there with the shekel, but commodity money is simply whatever item you want to use as money. Besides silver, you could use copper, you could use gold, you could use barley. But now we've standardized how we measure any of those commodity money items. Silver was durable, it was portable, it was universally valued, it's easy to carry around than bags of grain, bolts of fabric. Coins will come along later, and I'll look forward to that lesson. Actually, I like that. When that happens, the Lydians will invent coins. They're descendants in lands of the Hittites. But they could use scrap pieces, rings, coils, whatever they could weigh would help. But another problem is arising. You're going to have to get really clever and come up with ways to measure bolts of fabric, to measure the tools, to measure the craftsmanship, to consider how difficult it is to produce olive oil or the different grades of wine. And Mesopotamians invented beer, and all of these things take different time and craftsmanship. And so more thought and economic behavior. This is economics class, right? You're going to just come up with solutions everywhere because ultimately you are driven by your own self-interests, your own profit motive. You are looking not only to survive. Remember, you're not going to go into the desert. You're going to do things that will help you survive, but you also want to thrive. You want to have a happy, flourishing life. And so you're going to choose economic behaviors and decisions that help. And if they help you, they help everybody. Like, how do we determine the value of a bolt of cloth? How do we come up with abstract ways to create an understanding amongst all of us of the value of different items, because that's going to put you on a trade route, literally. Like literally you will go on trade routes and you'll be able to understand people from different places that do different crafts. So if you're enjoying this journey into the ancient world, just make sure that you've hit the like button if you haven't already, and subscribe to the channel. And don't miss out on the full course experience at classicalkingdoms.com, where I do have really nice deep dive research downloads on trade, on ancient Mesopotamian trade, and all these beyond shekels and selas and everything. Okay, so segment 3 is the trade route. Because if you have an understanding of value and you understand economic decisions, we're ready for segment 3. With the system of value now in place, the stage is set for you to go anywhere. You're now an entrepreneur. Do you know this word? Entrepreneur. Because you're not just sitting at home surviving the basics like a caveman. You're going out there with some risk. You're taking your products out there. So let's look at a city of Ashur. In Mesopotamia, Ashur, kind of towards the north, in the area that later we'll study about Assyria. These merchants had world-class textiles. And it's really in line with the Silk Road. They didn't have metals in that part of Mesopotamia. And you really don't. It's not a good place for it. But 1,000 kilometers away, over in Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, Anatolia, where the Hittites, where the Lydians will be, where the Hatti once were before the Hittites, there's lots of silver. Oh, wait, didn't I say the Lydians would invent coins? And there's a lot of silver there. But they don't make textiles. They don't have the type of terrain to grow a lot of flax and make linen fabrics. And they also don't have tin. Surprisingly, with all the minerals, tin was really hard to come by. People wanted to get it from wherever they could, and there weren't that many places to get it. Tin is essential for bronze. Copper plus tin is bronze, and that is the high-tech material of the day. But this journey, 1,000 kilometers, if you're going to travel that far, it's 2 or 3 months. Oh, so now I guess I can't stay home and be a farmer. And for 2 or 3 months, can you really even take care of livestock? You're going to travel that much. So now traveling merchants, that could be your job. If you can avoid the bandits, if you can survive mountains and deserts and droughts, if you can be able to, so you must either carry 3 months worth of water with you, or you barter and trade as you go. Traveling merchants, trade routes. We're pretty much on the Silk Road as we look at this particular venture, these merchants on trade routes. Tin is the essential ingredient. Copper plus tin equals bronze. And nobody's really got tin except Cyprus does. And you got to get to the seaports. So how are you going to do that? The journey between all these different places, Mesopotamia, to get all the way over so that you can trade tin with Cyprus, these journeys were 2 to 3 months at least. It's a trek across mountains and deserts, and there's bandits, there's harsh weather. So who's really crazy enough to do that? This becomes your full-time job as a merchant. And you're going to be carrying things and trying to trade and barter as you go. But these Assyrian merchants from Ashur that you can see up there, the north side on the Tigris River, they're not that far from other trade routes. They could actually make a go at this if they're willing to take the risk and they know that the value of that risk is going to be worth it. Their self-interest, they have a profit motive. Self-interest, that means you're acting in a way that's going to be beneficial to you. And if everybody does that, it makes it beneficial to everyone because everyone's trying to accomplish something. Ultimately, the profit motive is going to be that desire for financial gain. You're going to come out ahead. It's why people take risks. And when everyone does that, when everyone overcomes those struggles, a lot of incredible things happen. Innovation happens. And so now these merchants, let's try to zoom in a little more, as these merchants find themselves pretty well connected then to the Silk Road. The wide band there represents the Silk Road, and it's coming all the way from India, all the way from China. That's why it's called silk, because we're bringing things from the Orient all the way to the West. Once it hits Antioch and touches the Mediterranean Sea, you're practically to Cyprus, and they've got tin. So the profit motive of merchants from Asher, they recognize how these trade routes and then connecting to the Silk Road, it's really a risk worth taking. Merchant families would pool together and they would buy their tin and textiles, even though they don't even need it, and finance huge donkey caravans, even though they didn't want all those donkeys, the stubborn donkeys. And they would have 200 donkeys in one caravan of families. And now we've got safety numbers. Everybody's kind of motivated to be merchant traders and to make these travels. And if you go the northern route, you can make it all the way to Anatolia, get the things that you need. There's silver. Everything is a 100% profit. That's a microeconomic discussion. But think, like, what are you trying to make off of each item that you're taking with you? And it's same as true in a lot of stores today. You basically try to double your money and you can pay for these expenses and still come out ahead. And these Assyrian traders, and that's one of the reasons why Assyria is going to grow and become strong, is not only were they good at trade, but they had to be good at defending themselves. So they will come up again. And their capital in Nineveh, which is further north, Asher is an important city. Okay, but I think you get the idea now. If caravans are forming and going on these routes and they want to connect to the Silk Road and then they go back to their hometowns, why are they doing it? Personal profit motive. And how do we know? We've got some records of these enterprising, well-managed, family-based caravans on Silk Road and local trade routes, and this is going back 4,000 years. For their own gain, these merchants are creating a system of incredible interconnectivity. And if they didn't do it, we wouldn't have bronze. You can't just sit in one place and make bronze. You can't sit in one place and really have good human flourishing. So they moved the resources from one place to another that were common in one place and took them, a high supply in one place, and you take them to where there's demand for it in another place. Supply and demand. Welcome to economics class. It's creating wealth. It's giving people a flourishing life. And that's the classical journey that we're all still even on, a journey into history, virtue, and wonder. I'd love to know what you think. So do you have a business idea in mind that you are going to engage in now that you understand a little more about economics? Moving on to segment 4, we've got a king. We've got a patriarch. They might have even known each other. But in 2 separate private transactions, we see that they made economic choices, good economic choices that are helping us still today. So let's get into that story. Let's zoom out on the map first, because the patriarch is going to come all the way from Ur. And as he travels through Babylon, that's where the king is going to be coming from. And it's possible they're from the same time period. They go all the way north along the Euphrates. And the patriarch is going to settle in Hebron. We are talking about Abraham, who settles in Hebron. He is a patriarch, which means father of a family, because he has a lot of relatives and a lot of livestock, and that makes him very wealthy. He migrated from Mesopotamia to Canaan, from Ur, he was originally from, and Sarah is his wife. And as they are becoming so old, Abraham has had quite an adventure. He actually makes it all the way to Egypt and back, and Hebron and the Oaks of Mamre. And now he wants to ensure that his wife has a burial place, a cave, a proper set of honorable places for the family. He's a patriarch, and so the whole family is going to be buried in Hebron, but he needs to secure the land. So what do? At the time, the Hittites were in control of this area around Hebron. What are Hittites doing in Hebron? What are Hittites doing in Canaan? Well, they're doing what everybody is doing. They're trading on trade networks, and they're migrating. And Canaan is a really great land. And with the Hittites in control of this area, there's a landowner named Ephron. Ephron gets to know Abraham and realizes the importance of Abraham. Abraham is a patriarch, and he is vastly wealthy, and his descendants there's a huge amount of ancestry and importance, and they're Obviously, this is a diplomacy event. He's like a nation. Abraham is like a nation. Abraham is offered the caves and the land as a gift from Ephron. What is the economic choice that Abraham is about to make here? Economically, you think it's only about money. And if he can get free land, he should do it. But he doesn't do that. Abraham now insists on paying the full market price for this land, these caves in Hebron. And you can look them up because they're still there. 400 shekels of silver. 400 shekels of silver. And you're like, oh, I know how much that is. That would be 133 ounces. Well, that's not the actual value in the way this ancient money was viewed. It's not money. They haven't invented money yet. 400 shekels of silver is a huge amount of money. It's a much more massive amount than we would just compare in today's money. Why is Abraham paying more than he needs to if this class is about economics? Why would he turn down the gift? Well, the unexpected result is an economic choice as well. When it's not just about limited resources, it's also about authority and the limits that would be placed on a gifted land in the future. The land might not be viewed as authoritative if he didn't pay the appropriate price. As a gift, something might have changed in the future. He wanted to ensure, but he also wanted to use authority in the economic sense. That people are going to trust what 400 shekels will buy. That people are going to trust an economic decision made between Abraham, the migrating Hebrew, right? This is Judaism. This is Abraham from the original monotheistic. Now, people trace back Jews, Christians, Muslims are all going to trace back to Abraham as a monotheistic believer in one God, one true God. And he wanted this as a record. He wanted it recorded. And that's how we're telling you, because it's been recorded. The record of it, more than a gift, is recorded in the Bible. So Abraham's purchase of this land in this cave is recorded in ancient texts, in ancient Bible, in ancient Torah. About Abraham's purchase, it's said that it's transferred to Abraham as a permanent possession in the presence of Hittite elders. He had witnesses to the transaction. You can see that authority is important in economics. It's like a set of rules. By everyone following these rules, then it's like record of the transaction and proof that he really owns the land. Abraham buries his wife Sarah there in Canaan, and then generations after that, from his family, from his descendants, will also be buried there. Because in witnesses, the Hittites, it's a permanent burial place. And if you visited there today, there is a structure in a library, and it's a holy place to Jews, Christians, and Muslims to some extent who have followed or believed that that is the actual site. Some have venerated that site. They show it. It's a historical significance. So check that out. With Abraham's authority, setting up a set of rules so that you can have a truthful understanding about economic situation. For your behavior, you want to discern the truth so that you can see a good result. And in the pursuit of truth and seeing the good, you can experience the beautiful. And that is a human flourishing like no other. And in this lesson about economics, you're going to see economic choices and good behavior are going to deliver better results for you, and everyone will end up benefiting. So it seems like there's a tension between having so many rules and having the freedom to make a choice. Do you want to grow barley, or do you want to chase sheep? Do you want to migrate into the desert, or do you want to migrate to a totally new land and just start over? There's sort of like a tension between having too many rules and having this freedom of opportunity, the excitement of economic choices and behaviors. Think about it like sports. Do you play a sport? Anything from soccer, maybe volleyball. Don't you have to have a set of rules, or it's just not good. Nobody would even bother to do it if there wasn't some trust and some authority given in justice around the entire game, right? If the game of survival to the ancient people was something that They needed to understand the natural law of what the rivers are doing and what barley would do. And you're the same way. And now we've come up with games that you can play, whether it's football or basketball or anything like that. You know that that authority and the set of rules that surrounds that gives you an opportunity to understand your behavior, your economic choices. So what have you discovered on this ancient economic journey? It's just the beginning. How human ingenuity solves the problem of trade and growing civilizations, creating languages of value and weights and measure shekels, and then using silver as something that eventually will turn into money. And merchants on trade routes and big transactions and leaders like Abraham and Hammurabi. That authority helps everyone. And this is the story of ancient economic choices that are helping to establish civilizations that are just going to grow bigger in the coming lessons. They're not just creating wealth, but opportunities and a pursuit of happiness. So the question for you is, what rules are helping your life? Whether it's education in school, whether it's your sports or your business, you've got the freedom to succeed. And you've got the economic understanding now, thanks to ancient economics, that you can move forward with better behavior, better choices. So thank you for taking the time to learn something that matters in all of history. And that includes your history, some classical wisdom for your journey. Because kingdoms rise and fall, power fades, but virtue endures.